So welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our lecture series called Daily News in Shorts. In this lecture series, we cover a particular day's current affairs in a very short span of time within 30 minutes. Now, just watching this lecture within 30 minutes would be job half done, because just after watching it, you need to revise it as well. Because revision helps in consolidating these current affairs in your memory. Otherwise, you'll quickly forget them. Now, you can revise these current affairs from the notes, and these notes are shared on our Telegram platform. The link to our Telegram channel is provided in the comment section just below this video. Alright then, let's begin today's discussion. But first, let's take a look at the list of topics that we shall cover today. So in total, we'll be covering these 4 topics. Number 1 on this list is compulsory licensing. Okay. Recently, a number of petitions have been filed in the courts, high courts as well as the Supreme Court, asking for compulsory licensing on certain drugs that are for rare diseases. Okay. Now, what is this issue of compulsory licensing? What are rare diseases? We'll talk about this. Then recently, a World Bank report came out which talked about decline of poverty in India. India has considerably reduced its poverty levels since 2011-12. So what is this all about? Okay, and what is the poverty line as per World Bank? We'll talk about this. Then, Taiwan has recently warned that China is making all the plans to occupy it. Okay, and China is employing grey zone warfare tactics. Now, what is grey zone conflict? We'll talk about this. And in the end, we'll talk about the Indian economy. The headwinds facing Indian economy, the tailwinds facing Indian economy. And we'll also understand these two terms, headwinds and tailwinds. What are they? Okay. So this is the 4th topic. So with that, we'll cover all these 4 topics. We'll focus all our attention on these 4 topics. So let's start discussion on them, starting with topic number 1, and that is compulsory licensing. So first, let's talk about what was in the news. So in a bid to make the life-altering medicine affordable for a spinal muscular atrophy patients, filed a petition in the Kerala High Court urging the government to invoke the compulsory licensing clause under Section 84 of Indian Patents Act. The patient who has filed this case, her case is at least one of 2 such cases currently in Indian courts that seek for making life-saving drugs for rare diseases affordable. Now the question is, what is this thing called compulsory licensing? What are rare diseases? What has happened is that a patient of spinal muscular atrophy, which is a rare disease, well, the medicine for this rare disease is very expensive. Now, the only way of reducing the price on this medicine is by invoking compulsory license on this medicine, which is as per Section 84 of Indian Patents Act. Okay, this was what was discussed in the news. Now, again, I'll repeat this. The question is, what is compulsory licensing? Okay, so about compulsory licensing. Look, the thing is that all the medicines are made by pharmaceutical companies. Okay, now to make these medicines, a lot of research and development is done. Okay, a lot of money is spent on the research and development of these medicines. Now, the company that does this research and development and makes this medicine, it has to be rewarded, right? And it is rewarded by giving it a patent. So let's suppose there is a pharmaceutical company which did a lot of research and development and produced a drug, a medicine. Now that company would apply for a patent. Okay. Now, as soon as that company is granted patent on that medicine, that company would hold the right to make, market and sell that drug exclusively. Okay. I'll repeat it. When a pharmaceutical company gets a patent on a medicine, it means that only that company would be allowed to sell that medicine and make that medicine. No other company would be allowed to make that medicine and sell that medicine. Now, this exclusive right under patent is given so as to reward these companies to do more research and development. Okay. So, because most of the work was done by this pharmaceutical company, therefore, it has been rewarded by giving it exclusive privilege of manufacturing and selling this medicine. Okay. This is what a patent is. Now, this patent is valid for 20 years. Okay. After 20 years, then this medicine becomes open for anyone to manufacture. Okay, now all the other companies would manufacture this medicine, okay, and sell it also. But for 20 years, the exclusive right is with the patent holder. When the patent expires, this medicine becomes generic medicine. Generic means anyone can manufacture it. Clear? Make sense? Now for 20 years, these companies have monopoly over these medicines. Now because they have monopoly, well, they jack up the prices. They keep the prices very high so that to earn maximum profit for 20 years. That is why patented medicines have very high prices until the time their patent expires. Clear? Now there are some life-saving drugs, life-saving medicines, which are very important for certain people in India and all over the world. Okay? But because companies have patent on these medicines, they keep the prices very high and they don't allow any other manufacturer to manufacture those medicines at lower price. Okay? Now for these life-saving drugs, the government of India has the power to grant compulsory license to any other company to make this medicine at lower price. Though, as per the Indian patent law, if a company has a patent, then that company has the exclusive right. But if the government feels that this medicine is critical, very important, then government can partially take away this exclusive right and grant it to some other company which is ready to manufacture this medicine at lower price. This is known as compulsory licensing. So it allows Indian government to grant someone other than the patent holder the right to make medicine if a product or process is nationally unviable, unavailable and overpriced. Okay. Drug patents in India are valid for 20 years and it is covered under Indian Patents Act. Clear? Now compulsory licensing, the provision for compulsory licensing is covered under Section 84 of Indian Patents Act. So Section 84 of Indian Patents Act allows the government to grant compulsory license on a patented drug to some other company which is ready to manufacture it for lower price. Okay, and the government does this to make medicines for life-saving drugs affordable. Okay, now government has the power to grant compulsory license, but so far government has only used this compulsory license once. Okay, and that too for an anti-cancer drug called Nexavar made by Bayer International, a German pharmaceutical company. Clear? Now the petition filed in the Supreme Court and Kerala High Court and many other high courts, well, they are talking about making some of the drugs for rare diseases under compulsory licensing available and affordable. So these petitions have been filed to make rare diseases or medicines for rare diseases under compulsory licensing so that they become affordable. Right? Now the question is, what are rare diseases? Okay, so rare diseases. So a rare disease, as the name suggests, is the one which is very rare. Okay, now there is no one single fixed definition for rare diseases all over the world. Every country has defined rare diseases as per their own laws. Okay, now in India, as per National Policy for Rare Diseases 2021, the definition for rare disease is that which has affected less than 2 lakh patients in the country, which is extremely rare. That means only 6.4 people out of 10,000 people have been affected by it. The thing is that for rare diseases, medicines are not that easily available, and there is a reason for that. The thing is, pharmaceutical companies have to do a lot of research and development for these medicines. Okay. The thing is that for rare diseases, pharmaceutical companies are not that willing to do that much research and development. The reason for that is because these diseases are so rare that these pharmaceutical companies won't have that many customers. Even if they do research and development and make a medicine, they won't find many customers because, well, there are not many customers. Very few people are affected by these rare diseases. Okay. So it looks like a loss-making venture for these pharmaceutical companies because they'll spend a lot of money, but they can't sell this medicine to a lot of customers. And even if they make these medicines by doing a lot of research and development, they keep the prices very high so as to recover their cost from these very few customers. That is why the drugs for rare diseases are also called orphan drugs, or rare diseases are also called orphan diseases. Why orphan? Because no pharmaceutical company is willing to do research for them. That is why they are orphans. Clear? That is why many countries across the world, well, basically provide funding for research and development into these diseases to pharmaceutical companies. So funding is provided by government so that pharmaceutical companies do research and development. Okay, makes sense? Now, even if a company decides to make a medicine for rare diseases, doing research and development, they keep the prices very high. Now that makes the medicine unaffordable. That is why this petition was filed to put this medicine for spinal muscular dystrophy under compulsory licensing. This is the entire issue. So I hope you understood what compulsory licensing is, what patent is, and what are rare diseases. Alright, in case there is a doubt, please use the comment section. Alright, now let's move on to second news item, which is decline of poverty in India. So extreme poverty in India is estimated to have declined from 27.1% in 2011-12 to just 5.3% in 2022-23. So in a matter of 11 years, India has reduced its poverty manyfold from 27 to 5%. This steep decline has occurred even as the bank has raised the threshold, World Bank. We are talking about World Bank because this figure has been released by World Bank. So this steep decline has occurred even as the World Bank has raised the threshold for measuring extreme poverty. The thing is that to measure extreme poverty, World Bank has given a poverty line. Okay? Anyone who earns less than this poverty line is categorized as poor. Okay. Now, earlier World Bank had kept the poverty line at $2.15, $2.15 per day. So, anyone earning less than $2.15 per day would be categorized as poor. Recently, World Bank increased it from $2.15 to $3. Now, anyone who earns less than $3 a day is poor. Despite raising the poverty line, still India's poverty levels have declined. That means government has done a lot to reduce poverty levels. And in fact, many other figures have come out which prove the fact that India has continuously reduced its poverty levels. In fact, a Niti Aayog report on multidimensional poverty also registered a steep decline. Clear? Now, what you need to remember is, first of all, what is poverty line as defined by World Bank? Okay, so the World Bank has recently raised, this part we have covered, has recently raised the international poverty line from $2.15 to $3 per day, okay, in PPP terms. Clear? Now this is for low income countries. So the poverty line for low income countries is $3. For lower middle income countries it's $4.2. And for upper middle income countries it is $8.4. So for based on the GDP or richness level of a country, you have basically devised different poverty lines. Clear? Now remember, these poverty lines are calculated in PPP terms. Now what do we mean by PPP terms? Hear me out carefully, okay? The thing is that, well, $1 is equal to 80 rupees. This is nominal exchange rate. But when we compare goods, we find out that let's suppose there is this, pen. Okay. In USA, this pen costs around $1. And in India, this pen costs around 40 rupees. Let's suppose that is the situation. Okay. So when we talk about nominal exchange rates, $1 is equal to 80 rupees. But when we compare goods in different countries, we find out that the exchange rate is $1 is equal to 40 rupees, right? The pen in USA is $1, in India it's 40, okay? Similarly, other goods are also in this ratio. Then we'll say that exchange rate between USA and India in PPP terms is 40, okay? Now, World Bank measures poverty in PPP exchange terms. So, if World Bank says that if anyone earns less than $3 per day in PPP terms, then we'll take the PPP exchange rate and we'll say 40 into 3, that is 120. Anyone who earns less than 120 rupees per day is categorized as poor in India as per World Bank. You understand? Otherwise, we would have used this exchange rate. 80 times 3 is 240. but we are using PPP exchange rate. I hope you understood PPP, right? So it is the exchange rate based on the comparison between goods priced in different countries. Okay. Now, who calculates PPP exchange rate? Well, it is calculated by International Comparison Program coordinated by World Bank. International Comparison Program functions under the guidance of UN Statistical Mission. Clear? Very simple. All right. Now let's move on to the third news item, which is grey zone conflict. Look, the thing is that this is Taiwan and over here is China. Now, China considers this island to be its own country, okay, its own property, and China says this is not Taiwan, this is China, and someday we will reunite Taiwan with China. But Taiwan doesn't want it. So there is this conflict between China and Taiwan, and people believe that someday China will invade Taiwan and capture it. And Taiwan fears that. That is why Taiwan is building up its military and seeking help from USA. Okay. Now, recently, Taiwan's Coast Guard held mock drills to prepare for the growing grey zone threat from China, which claims the island to be its own territory. China claims the island to be its own territory. Democratically governed Taiwan has repeatedly complained about activities such as undersea cable cutting and sand dredging by China around the island. Okay. Now, what Taiwan has complained is that, look, if China has to invade Taiwan, it has to do it via navy. Right? Because it is an island, there is no land bridge. So Chinese Navy would invade Taiwan. Now, Taiwan is saying that China is already making preparations for its navy or naval ships, because these naval ships have to dock near Taiwan. So they are removing the sand near the beaches, okay, sand dredging around the island. Plus, they are also cutting undersea cables so that it is easier for navies and submarines to cross. Now, this is definitely a provocation. If China has already started cutting undersea cable for its submarines and sand dredging for its naval ships, Taiwan is well within its right to believe that China is getting ready to invade. Right? Now, all these things, undersea cable cutting, sand dredging, all these things are categorized as grey zone conflict. Now, what is important for us to know is, what is the definition of this word grey zone? Okay, so what is a grey zone conflict? So, grey zone warfare generally means a middle, unclear space that exists between direct conflict and peace. So, relationship between two countries can either be that of peace or complete war. So, peace or war. But there is a place in between, and that is known as the grey zone. The countries are neither at peace nor at war. And they are fighting with each other. Yes, they are not fighting to the extent of a full-blown war, but they are fighting with each other. Cyber attacks are there, economic coercion, use of proxies. Okay, basically both these countries are trying to put pressure on the other country. So there is neither peace nor war, but there is something in between. Okay, this is known as the grey zone. So when China is preparing its military to invade Taiwan, it is categorized as grey zone. Currently, the tensions between India and Pakistan, they are also categorized as grey zone, because these countries are not fighting a full-blown traditional war. They fought with each other for 4 days post Operation Sindoor, but that conflict was not a full-blown war. Plus, Pakistan uses its proxies, terrorist organizations, against India. So it is definitely a conflict between peace and war. It is a grey zone conflict. This type of conflict blurs the lines between peace and war, making it difficult to determine who is at fault and what constitutes an act of aggression. As you can see on this map, these red dots are, well, China's naval ships. Okay, these plus signs, they are China's aircrafts that usually fly all around Taiwan, basically telling Taiwan that we are ready to invade anytime. This definitely falls in grey zone. Okay, so you need to understand this term grey zone. That is why I included this news item in today's discussion. Okay, so grey zone. All right, now let's move on to the last news item of the day, and that is headwinds and tailwinds for Indian economy. So, Helped by the late 7% plus surge in last quarter, India's real GDP in financial year 24-25 grew by 6.5%. Now, in future, Indian economy faces headwinds as well as tailwinds. Now, what are these in economic terminologies? Okay, what do we mean by headwinds and tailwinds when we are talking about economy? Okay, so headwinds means that risks or bad things that would stop the growth of Indian economy. And tailwinds are good things that would boost Indian economy. So headwinds are those factors that would reduce or put brakes on Indian economic growth. For example, if agriculture declines, or if there is global uncertainties, or there is a global recession, then that would be categorized as headwinds for Indian economy. Okay, but if there is good bumper crop in India, or there is good monsoon in India, that would boost India's economy. That is a tailwind. So tailwinds are those factors that promote economic growth. Headwinds stop economic growth. Okay, headwinds and tailwinds basically are terminologies from aircrafts and ships. So when there is a tailwind, basically means that the wind that is pushing the ship forward, and headwinds that are coming from other direction, that are reducing the speed of the ship or aircraft. Okay, now what are the headwind factors for Indian economy? That means factors that would reduce India's economy. First of all, as per World Bank, well, capital expenditure or investment levels, especially by the private sector, are very low in India, and that would reduce India's economy. Then there are global uncertainties. With Trump's tariff war and protectionist measures all over the world, global trade has suffered. Now, this is a big challenge not just for Indian exports, but foreign investment into India. So this is a headwind. Plus, it has been seen that there is a slowdown in urban consumption levels. So urban people are spending less money on buying goods and services. Now, if they are spending less money, why would a private company open another factory to produce more goods and services? Because the existing goods and services are not being bought completely by people, right? So this would disincentivize private people from investing in more factories. So private investment is down, capex is down, all right, because of slowdown in urban consumption. Plus, already RBI has reduced a lot of interest rates. Okay, RBI has reduced repo rate, and this reduction is done to boost Indian economy. But RBI cannot reduce these interest rates anymore. It has reduced as much as it could have reduced. So in future, if Indian economy does not recover, RBI cannot do anything. RBI has reached the limits of its policy intervention. So this is another headwind, right? So these are the risks that Indian economy is running. But there are definitely some tailwinds also. For example, strong agricultural growth has been shown last year. Plus this year monsoon is going to be great. So there is going to be strong agricultural growth. This would definitely improve farm incomes and would definitely improve rural demand. That is good tailwind. Inflation has been very low, so this is good. Plus, well, RBI has provided a lot of monetary stimulus by reducing repo rate, which would show its impact a little later. Plus, in the budget this year, government reduced income tax rates. This is known as fiscal stimulus. All the budget policies are known as fiscal policies. So, government decided to reduce income tax. This would save more money with the people, which they'll use to spend. So urban consumption levels would increase. Okay, and urban consumption levels, when they increase, but this would incentivize private investors to invest more. So these are some of the tailwinds which would push the economy. Okay, now the whole idea of including this news item in our discussion today was to make you familiar with these two words, headwinds and tailwinds. Please understand the meaning of these two words and use these two words in your mains answers as well. This would make your mains answer stand out. It would look more academic. Okay, so that was the purpose of introducing you to these two words. And with that, we conclude today's session. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I'm sure it has added value to your preparation. But it would add more value if you revise this lecture as well. So please do not forget to do that. And on that note, I'll be signing off. with the promise of seeing you again with another set of news items. Thank you, everyone.